Yeah. I'm on fire. Oh, fire finally too.
Yo, I'm not doing no damage to this guy, yo.
Yeah. Get him.
Somebody pick him up.
Yeah, get them. Don't worry about me. Yeah, because evidently my guy wanted to go down that other street and I couldn't control him.
Yo,
Man,
Zero says he's in the same server.
Oh, really? Yeah. Can't go that way.
Yep, that's why he brought us over here.
All three of you are
Fucking.
Oh, yeah. Back up.
Fucking bitches, bro. They're coming back to you guys. They're going back to you.
Now he's got the shield out. What the?
Okay, how far did it come out?
Oh, they out. They weird.
All right. Oh, okay. All right. Where you guys at?
Relentless is good though.
Got him. Okay, you got him.
He got him. He got him.
What's up, guys and gals, and welcome back to another Division 2 video. If you happen to be new to the channel, then ground and pound that like and subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on post notifications so that way you know each and every time a new video is uploaded or a stream goes live. All you have to do is reach up there and trigger that bell, and you'll never miss a notification. But anyways, this is what I call the absolute ripper. The do all, tell all, wipe all build. So no matter what the activity is, this build can handle anything. And there'll be gameplay at the end of pretty much basically everything. But without further ado, enough of my rambling, let's hop right into it. As you can see, whether you choose like the CTAR or the P416, I was actually running both. 7, 12, 1, we'll start with the weapons first. It is the P416G3. It is only a 479 gear score. Take that in mind. At 21.4k base damage with preservation. Killing an enemy repairs 10% armor over 5 seconds. Headshot improves the repair. 10% rate of fire by way of Allegro, and then of course stop, drop, and roll. While equipped, rolling removes burning, bleed, and poison status effects. Can occur once every 60 seconds. In the mods, we have 8% damage to elites. We have plus 20 rounds, minus 10% reload speed, plus 10% reload speed, which negates that negative 10% reload speed that we took on the magazine. And then, of course, we have an additional 5% damage to elites in the muzzle. And this is basically my anything mid to a little further out range. And then as far as up close and personal, we have the CTAR with close and personal. 16.1k base. Close and personal is killing a target within 7 meters, grants 50% weapon damage for 5 seconds. Requires 5 or more offensive Legos, and I have 7. And of course, Allegro, the 10% rate of fire. In rhythm, not too great. While equipped, enemy kills have a 5% chance to refresh active skill cooldowns. Can occur once every 60 seconds, but it can come in handy if it procs when you actually need it to. In the mods, we have the 10% damage to elites, the minus 10% optimal range, but since we are utilizing close and personal, that optimal range doesn't necessarily matter because in order to proc close and personal, we have to kill a target within the 7 meters, so it works out. And then we have the same extended mag, plus 20 rounds, minus 10% reload speed, and then basically the only side slot that I have is laser pointers. So therefore we have that little measly 5% crit chance. So we just basically stuck it on there for cosmetic looks, I should say. And then of course in the muzzle we have the additional 5% damage to elites. So let's hop into the gear itself. We'll start with the chest piece. And currently I am in search for a better chest piece. This is only a 491. 43.3k base damage. For that one piece, we get the 10% assault rifle damage. The attributes are 9% weapon damage, 15,657 health, 23,539 armor, and we're using Berserk. Plus 10% weapon damage for every 20% max armor depleted. Requires 7 or more. We have exactly 7. And of course, hard hitting, plus 10% damage to elites. In the mod slot, we have 1% weapon damage, 2% LMG damage, but then 5% assault rifle damage. For this one mod, we have 6% assault rifle damage. So combined, just for this one piece, we get 15% weapon damage. Now moving on to the other three components. I do have, I would say, a better backpack. I want the same talents as this one has as far as efficient and hardened. I do drop if I want to use this one, such as, let's say, the raid, for instance. My armor would basically stay the same, but then I would lose a little over 20k in health. But if I'm able to find one with the same attributes as this one, but instead of on the ropes with efficient, it would be definitely right up my alley and almost perfect for this build. Just, with higher main stats, and I'm pretty sure most of you, or at least some of you out there, have better attribute stats than what this is. This is just the pieces that I happen to find, and it actually works out really, really well no matter what activity I'm doing. DZ, either occupied, normalized, any kind of mission all the way up from to challenging. Even tried heroic missions on it, and I even played in the raid, in which I have clips of actually using the build and how it works actually in the raid. But without further ado, let's just keep going without me rambling on. And then, of course, in the mod slots, we have 56, 55 armor, 445 armor regeneration, and then 2.5% total armor. And then in the utility slot, we have 171 skill power, 1% increased burn duration, and then ensnare, which doesn't really matter. We just have that 171. It's basically just a filler spot because we are not utilizing any kind of electronics or skills besides, just our base. Because that is the only 171, and I didn't want to leave it empty, so I just threw a utility in there just for looks. But yeah, definitely if you have one with two defensive attributes on it, or what as I call Legos, and a higher weapon damage, and then of course efficient, and then hardened. But I mean, if you want to go with a higher health pool, then by all means, builder's choice. It's your personal preference and your playstyle. This is according to my playstyle and how I play. So tweak and mix and match and make it conform to your playstyle and not mine. But moving on to the other ghillie guard piece, which is the holster. And before I go too far, if you don't know, for having all three pieces, you get the 5% total armor, 20% hazard protection, and then of course the 15% pulse skill power, but we're not utilizing any skill power. But ghillie guard has definitely a lot of high attributes by way of mainly defensive, but they can come with offensive, such as the holster. But in the attributes, we have 14.5% health, 27,489 health, and then of course the mod slots. Both are offensive mod slots. In the first one, we have 2.5% weapon damage, 1.5% headshot damage, 3% optimal range. And then, of course, in the second, we have 0.5% weapon damage, 2% shotgun damage, which is we're not using. Then, of course, the 5% assault rifle damage. And some of you are like, well, why don't you just use one with devastating on it? Well, devastating gives you 5% weapon damage. And as you can see, this just in these mod slots here, I get a total of 7.5 to 8. See, 5, my math is a little screwy, but yeah, 8% weapon damage total. So I'm getting 3% more than actually having devastating. And I have several ghillie guard holsters, and they do not come with a talent. Now I could go with the likes of a Fenris holster, even with one with 2 defensive slots such as this one. It has the hard hitting if I wanted to have that additional damage, which is just the 10% damage to elites, but I'm losing out on 8% weapon damage. So if you are utilizing builds such as these in the raid, be sure to know that it's more or less a mix and match when it comes to damage to elites and of course raw base damage, because it requires more or less both. And if you stack, for instance, like on my previous raid build, which did work, don't get me wrong, was a little tankier, and it had 98% damage to elites. But with the 2-piece True Patriot, and having less damage to elites by, I think, 20%, that I'm actually hitting harder and actually killing NPCs faster due to the 10% multiplicative damage. And on the mask, since we're speaking of it, and you can get higher damage to elites rolls than what this is. This is the best one I've found so far. Typically, I usually run this ghillie guard mask because it has 43% damage to elites, and then, of course, the hard hitting. But with the 10% damage to armor that is multiplicative, and then the 37% damage to elites, and then 14,449 health. And for the second piece, it is the gloves. We have 10% assault rifle damage, and then an additional 12,546 health. Now moving on to the second, or I should say third and final ghillie guard piece. It is, of course, the knee pads, and the attributes are 14,119 armor, and of course we're utilizing patience. It synergizes with preservation really nicely, and of course after being in cover for 5 seconds, armor repairs by 5% every 1 second. So this can greatly increase your survivability, definitely in the raid, and also basically anything PvE or PvP. I mean, this is more or less, it's very versatile no matter what you're using it in as far as PvE or PvP. It comes in really handy, and if you use it properly, and then the right scenario was basically anything with cover, then you're going to increase your survivability tenfold just by utilizing patience, and then having other talents to accompany that, to fortify that, and synergize with that, so that way you stay alive longer. So if you do pop up out of cover to take shots at either NPCs or players, you're taking damage in return, so at least you're getting some of that armor back. And so you can look at it as more or less mitigates, some of that damage, because they're taking it off, you put it right back on. You kind of see where that's going, right? So it does work out really, really super well. If you want to know what my holster talent is, it varies. This is the D50. It has rooted while equipped and in cover. All skill damage and healing is increased by 25% per 10 seconds. That works really, really well and synergizes with patience and preservation and all those other things. And then, of course, if I'm, say, in a tight pickle, protected deploy. While equipped, this weapon grants 10% bonus armor. It is more dependent on how much armor you actually have. So that 10% is roughly, 29, almost 30,000 health. And all you basically do, if you have a chem launcher, you can just pull it out in your hand as you're running, and you're going to get that 10% armor. So if you need to make an escape and want to just have that little extra oomph to try to, shield you from completely going down or wiping, just so that way you can, dodge, roll, or whatever, and so that way you can, get into cover, especially if a grenade's being thrown your way and things of that nature, then it works out really well. Instead of double tapping the either L1 or R1, depending on which you have it assigned to, you just hit it once, so that way your chem launcher is in your hand, and then basically you just move and you get that protected deploy, which is that buff and boost in that armor. But that's basically it. If you want to go with protected reload, that variety, I pretty much got all the bases covered. But let's hop over to the character sheet, so that way I know that's very important to a lot of you. 21.390 weapon damage, 20% all weapon damage bonus, 45% assault rifle damage, so a total of 65% assault rifle damage. Then, of course, the 60% damage to elites on the P416 with that 10% damage to armor. And then, of course, the CTAR, we have that 62%, and then still that 10% damage to armor. But let's not forget what's baked in on AR, which is that 29% health damage. So it comes in really, really handy in certain situations and those ferocious dogs in the raid. So basically, you're covered on anything that has armor or anything that just basically has health, just by utilizing an AR. Then the rest of it, as you can see, 293 armor pool, 446 armor regen, not really that much. Almost 144,500 max health, 82,214 health regeneration, 20% hazard protection, bleed, blind, burn, disrupt, shock, and disorient. And then there's our skill power, but like I said, we are just DPSing. Now, if you want to go with more damage to elites, but don't necessarily want to lose a lot of your base damage, thus that 8% that is in the mod slots of the ghillie holster, but you want to go with a little more damage to elites than just the 62, then you can easily just throw on a Fenris that has patience. And as you can see, the armor just drops ever so slightly by 13,000, and then the health pool just drops by 10k, but you're still tanky enough and well over 400k toughness, and you still get that additional plus 10% damage to elites. But like I said, if you have better rolls on the certain pieces that I have, and of course efficient on your backpack, which is using your armor kit, has a 50% chance to not consume that armor kit, which is practically doubling your armor kit. And since you're limited on them in the raid, it definitely comes in handy and is one of the I'd say top 3 talents on backpack for the raid, definitely. So the sky's the limit. Like I said, you better rolls, you'll have better pieces, and your stats will reflect that. I know I get tons of comments, well, you know, I have this much armor, I have this much health, and this much base damage. And, you know, that is basically, it's different for different individuals. But also keep in mind, some may have, let's say, 2k more weapon damage, or, you know, the same weapon damage, but might have 20k more in health, or, you know, certain stats vary. But it's not just what build you're running, but also the player that is actually using that build and how well he has situational awareness and can use that build to his advantage and basically turn it into an art form. So the build is just half the story. As far as your playability of that build, it is dependent on your skills with the sticks. And since I am on console, PS4, this is basically how things are run. As you'll see in the clips, it doesn't matter if it's PvP, you'll see clips of the raid. It doesn't matter if it's the raid. It is very versatile and can do anything and everything that's in the game. It just is dependent on how you play it and utilize the talents and the things in your environment to your advantage to actually make the build even better. But anyways, enough of my rambling. I'm going to send you over to some further gameplay than what you've seen at the beginning. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you fudging later.
You just went rogue.
I'm with you, Zero. He's got a defender up.
I fucking shot him point blank and it didn't even fucking kill him. I shot him fucking point blank with the fucking
Oh,
grenade
he's going
launcher.
down.
And it
He's
didn't
going
fucking
down.
kill him.
Don't let him hit.
Sorry, I'm just a bully.
Here
Blair?
we go again.
Hey, on me.
I smelted
That
his armor.
bloodsucker. That